Today we're talking about 11.1.7 and the most controversial thing I've seen in a while. I mean, we just went through the cartel thing. If you guys didn't see the video yesterday, we got a whole video on that. But today we're talking about something that has spawned from this video, okay? And so I watched this video. I want to do a bit of a live reaction to it, but honestly, most of it's not really relevant to what we're going to talk about today. They talk about a little bit, just go through quickly the general stuff. They talk about the idea that add-ons and I guess game design has been in a bit of an arms race to the point where they can't really expect it to go forward. There's an incredible highlight from what Ian says here. I'm going to let you guys listen to this right now because this is really important.
How some class mechanics work. I think it's super fair to point at some specs, like let's say Outlaw Rogue, or easy one to pick on in some of these ways, and ask how is anyone really supposed to execute this perfectly with the base UI? Almost any time we're tracking stacks of a buff, and you need to make a decision where it's if you're between 4 and 7 stacks, you should do this, otherwise don't. Those are not reasonable tests for us to be posing to our players without providing them the information to do it correctly. And so we need to either provide the information, simplify the mechanic, or both.
There you go. So that's the TLDR of what their philosophy is. And I actually am really impressed to hear him say that and articulate it so well. Because I guess I hadn't realized they had gotten that to that degree until I started doing the leveling challenge on the second channel. And you realize that when you don't have things like weak ores tracking certain spells and timers of certain things, it's well, how the hell are you supposed to figure this out? You actually can't do it with the base UI right now. And so they are trying to change that in 11.1.7. And there's a broader conversation to have about the ideas there. And, everybody seems to have a strong opinion on add-ons nowadays. But after hearing him talk, it makes it very obvious to me that there are add-ons that I look at as mandatory for my progression. I think the word mandatory is insanely overused, and I was a little disappointed to hear him say that so frequently, but I think it's just an easy word to use in the conversation. But yeah, I would never even consider doing a Mythic Plus without Plater, right? I actually noticed that when I was doing the leveling challenge. It is really hard to see the core information you need. Are my diseases on the target that I'm, are we doing the basic rotation properly on this target? Plater helps you with that. Are these casts getting kicked? Plater helps you with that. Is this guy a caster? It's marked. It's got a different color. There's so much that these add-ons help with that it's hard to go backwards from. And so the base game has a big issue with that. And what we're going to talk about today specifically, is a very big step in the divergence of that. And I don't know how many people actually watch that video. It's kind of long. It's 40-some minutes. And honestly, I think a lot of people probably didn't. They just heard other people talk about that. So I would really recommend, you're going to listen to my opinion on this right now, but I would really recommend you go listen to his opinion, to Ian Hazakostas, the person who is the top level designer of the game. Hear his thoughts on this because they're really important to understand this conversation. Basically, what he said from my perspective is that they don't have they don't have an unrealistic expectation that this is going to be perfect out of the gate. But this is a long-term philosophy for them to get the game to be more playable from the base UI, okay? So you don't have this list of 5+ add-ons that you actually definitely need to be able to be somewhat competitive. And so part of the conversation was that, Blizzard's relative ineptitude at replicating these add-ons is kind of embarrassing, to be honest. Frankly, Bartender is just better than their edit mode thing where you can move stuff around, right? It's just I don't know how they fucked it up, to be honest. But it's okay, it doesn't really need to be better visually or more add-on features or whatever. Those things on the add-on are there because those people who are developing it are trying to improve as well. But the company is just trying to establish a baseline. And so he says it perfectly in that interview or whatever you want to call that he sees it being down the road. People still use add-ons to customize things further, but the baseline is way closer to a good level. So instead of starting at let's put it in WoW level equivalent, right? Right now you start at level 1, right? But you need to be level 70 before you could even think about doing endgame content. And then you can probably get to level 80 to master it, right? Right now they want to start you at level 70. That's the equivalent. You don't have to go learn like how to configure your keybinds anymore. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to have to figure out the basics of your tracking of your spells anymore. They want to figure these things out for you, and they want you to start at the same level as everybody else who is now using add-ons. And this is a really, really good idea. Really, really good idea. And one of the main ways they're going to do that is with this feature. And this is what we're going to talk about right now. And it's very controversial. So I'm very interested in hearing the comments down below. But we're going to read a bunch of this. Blizzard has made an extended blue post covering the functionality of the new single button assistant. So if you guys have, if you didn't actually watch the article, basically what's happening is the add-on Hakili, I believe, is the add-on that does the first thing that they do is assisted highlight mode, I guess is what they're calling it, where your keybinds are going to light up based on the rotation Blizzard wants you to do, okay? And so there's immediately some big issues with that, and obviously Hakili as well, add-ons like it. I actually used to use add-ons like this all the time. My very good friend, Rusty, he got me into the game. He got me into serious rating back when I was in college in 2007, and he used an add-on called Shock and Awe at that point. He was playing an Enhancement Shaman, and up until that point, I had not met anybody who was super serious about the game in real life. But I noticed he was an incredibly good player. Like there was not as many parses and stuff like that back then. Like it was WoW web stats back in the day. But he would reliably be the top damage dealer in our group on every encounter. And I was shocked to see the people around him say things like, oh, yeah, no, you're a noob if you use a rotation assister, right? Because it was kind of common back then. Wrath really complicated the rotation from TBC and Classic, which was what we were just talking about on the second channel. But, yeah, and Rusty's perspective was like, why would you not use it? You know what I mean? Like, if the goal is to run as fast as humanly possible, why would you not have the best shoes available, right? People are like, well, it's harder to run with no shoes on, lol. It's like, yeah, the goal is to run as fast as possible, not to be challenged, right? And that was a really seminal moment in my WoW career because it really made a lot of sense to me. Like, if your goal is to just be performative, then you would use every fucking add-on you could possibly get, no matter what, even if they provided a very, very minor increase. And unfortunately, a lot of people have heard that and have gone the wrong direction with that. So that's probably why Blizzard is trying to do what they're doing now. But regardless, an add-on like Hakili is very, very good. The reason I stopped using it was because it was recommending me things that I didn't feel like were adequate recommendations. Like I tried to use a rotation helper for Blood Death Knight when I first started playing it in Legion. And it would recommend using Death Strike when I was not in danger, for example. That was one that I noticed immediately. It would tell you to always use Death Strike if you were going to overcap on Runic Power, which is probably a good piece of advice if you're doing a single target boss encounter where you're in no danger. But when you're in Mythic Plus, you can die from that, right? So Blizzard has a lot of potential like hills to climb with this feature, but I guess they're not going to, I don't know. I never actually heard it brought up, but it seems like it's going to be only for actual DPS players. And the goal is for this to not actually replicate a perfect rotation. Okay. So immediately I hear things like, okay. And also I think the single button assistant thing, we should just talk about that now. Basically it's going to do your rotation for you. Is this like I don't know what this actually is, but yeah, I guess this is the person pressing it. You can see they're pressing it. I don't know. These always lag for me, but anyway, you're going to press it and it's going to rotate through your rotation. So you don't even have to look at the actual highlighted thing. Okay. So we just talked about why the highlighted thing might be wrong. We talked about it giving you bad advice. Okay. And so they kind of offer their, assumptions and their expectations of it. Design guidelines. A single button assistant and assisted highlighted mode do a lot of things, but they do not fully play your character for you. Very important. There are several decisions we made about our expectation for what these functions perform. Single button assistant and highlighted assistant modes will adjust to abilities from changing talents and include them in the cycle abilities used to. And that's like a non-starter if it didn't do that. If it didn't do that, then this would be totally useless, right? So good. Swap between single target and AoE damage spells based on proximity of enemies near your primary target. That's fucking cool. Does the current add-ons do that? I assume Hakili and stuff might do that. The single button assistant and assisted highlight modes won't move your character around in the world, obviously. But they also won't recommend buttons that do movement. They won't change targets for you if your target dies. They won't use major offensive cooldowns like Avenging Wrath, Bladestorm, or Ascendance, which is something that you guys try to tell me that we're going to do. And that was a concern because it was going to like pop wings at the end of a pack because it doesn't recognize that the pack's almost dead. It won't interrupt enemies. The people don't do that anyway. Just kidding. So I think people do. But anyway, they won't do utility or crowd control spells. It won't heal you or use defensive abilities. And it won't interact with your trinkets, potions, or items otherwise in your inventory. Okay? So what do we have here? We have a system that is trying to streamline a process of learning. Okay? That's the way I look at this. And I don't know that everybody's looking at it this way. I've seen a lot of like hyperbolic reactions to this, like really, really, really weird reactions to this, where people are saying that this is going to like, I don't know, like take all the skill out of the game. I don't know if it's because people think that it's really hard to even understand the argument. So if anybody wants to make it, please leave a comment. I will certainly reply. But I assume that these are coming from a place of people who think that rotations are still the pinnacle of skill in this game. Okay. And let me go back now to feedback or to kind of advice that I've been giving since I started streaming Mythic Plus tanking. People always ask me, what tank would I recommend to play with? What tank is the easiest tank? Blah, blah, blah. Stuff like that, right? Like the most noob-friendly tank, right? I always say that you should play the tank that you understand the most and that is the easiest for you to play. And so that oftentimes turns into Guardian Druid or Prot Warrior. Those tanks are very straightforward. It's not necessarily their mobility or utility or crowd control spells that we're talking about there. We're talking about their core rotation, right? That's not going to, I guess, get addressed here in this system, but just pretend that it did, right? So if you had the ability to play those specs at full optimization, but the core rotation was one button, which is just not what it is for Guardian Druid, but just like at the most basic example, let's say it is, right? You would be so much better at actual tanking. This is the thing that I don't think people fully understand. Like, if your rotation didn't exist, if there was no processing power required going on in your brain whatsoever, you'd be a better player at the things that are actually hard. And I think when we look at these low Mythic Plus reviews or look at keys that are like, how the hell did this happen? Why is this guy doing this? It's because of that. It's because they're overloaded with those basic day-to-day like button presses. Like you have to press this and then this and then this in that order. And they're not good enough at that they can't even consider doing the utility. So it's actually funny that always gets said, like, oh, this guy kicked 0 times in the first 15 minutes of the dungeon. It's like, okay, I don't think that's because he doesn't know kick is valuable, right? I think it's because he doesn't have the processing power to do it on top of everything else the game offers. So some valid criticism I've heard about this is that it's going to be like, I think the first one that I heard that kind of, it makes sense, is like, if you suck at the game, people are just going to be like, all right, you're not allowed to play unless you switch to one button mode. Now, if you've seen it, it's awful. Like, it is so slow. There's no way it's going to be an optimal DPS rotation. And Ian, again, in the video says it's not meant to be. Like, you're not meant to do it at a Mythic Plus raid and expect to one-shot, like to be like the best raider in the possible world that you're in. It's just for people who are like casuals, quote unquote, people who are not doing competitive content basically, or people who are learning. I think this is like the most important thing. I really, really, really do. And I don't know how many people understand this. When you're learning a role it's not just the role. Like if you want to tank, you need to know about routes, you need to know about utility, you need to know about combining packs, you need to know about your comp, you need to know about what classes can offer what to facilitate the job, you need to know how to survive, you need to know your rotation defensively, you need to rotate offensive into defensive a lot of times. You're going to have to make class tree decisions, like do I want to choose a spell that helps me do this or a spell that helps me do that? There's so many things that you might need to do. And then on top of that, you need to do your actual rotation, which I think for most people playing WoW is trivially easy comparatively. And this is a good thing because if you look back at like classic WoW, the rotations pretty much didn't exist. And there's also no CDs. So it's like insanely boring combat in a raid boss, right? But out in the world, there's a lot more utility and a lot more things that you can use. And that's kind of the way the game worked at the beginning of those days. And so now Mythic Plus is that on like steroids, right? Like there's defensive, there's utility, there's self-healing, there's like group healing, there's group utility, there's self-utility, like all these different values that you have to kind of number crunch in your head about what the best way to approach the next press of a button is. That taking this out would dramatically help people. It really would. So for that reason alone, I full support. Full support. In fact, when we started our guild back in Wrath of the Lich King, there was at least one raider, maybe I think multiple at that point, that you were able to get to be more optimized by using a one-button rotation. And they, back then add-ons could do that. They changed that in Cataclysm, I believe. So add-ons could not do that. But apparently there's an add-on called Gnome Sequencer or something like that, GSE. I don't know anything about that stuff. But yeah, I guess it will allow you to do it somehow. So these things already exist. And just like the example I gave with Rusty, if you feel like you're struggling to succeed, why would you not use them? The only reason you would not use them is because they're imperfect. And so this is the big issue with the Blizzard one. Another valid criticism we've heard is that if it's anything like X other change Blizzard has made for the UI accessibility, it's going to be useless. And honestly, yeah, I could already see that. Because if the GSE thing exists and they allow it to continue to exist, I don't know how it works, but I'm assuming what I've been told is accurate, that it can allow you to make a full one-button rotation. Why would you use this one? This one nerfs you, right? I don't know. I don't understand that part of it. The other thing I would say that is huge criticism of the system is that it doesn't sound like you can iterate your rotation. Like, you just have to play how they want you to play. And I don't know how they could think that's a good idea. I actually have no idea how they think that's a good idea, because they're going to be fucking wrong. Like, it's actually kind of interesting, because in the game that we play, the version that we play, it's oftentimes people think they're smarter than the developers. And there's been very high-profile situations. I believe it was in Legion with Brewmaster, where the Blizzard developers basically said, like, hey, you're playing Brewmaster wrong. Figure something new out. Like, everybody was saying, like, Brewmaster is, like, terrible, kind of like people say it is now. And it was just like the thought leaders of the spec at the time were just, they just got it wrong or something. I don't remember exactly what happened. But oftentimes the community is like, oh, bro, I did the math. Like, come on, this company, no way they know more than I did a math thing. I know about math. Brother, they designed the fucking game. Of course they have insight that we don't have, right? They have an expectation before it's even shipped of how the rotation should play out. You're figuring it out after. But it may actually be an oversight at times, right? So I'm not really sure how you fix that from Blizzard's side. Like, if their proposed rotation is suboptimal and you're not allowed to change it, what is the purpose of this feature? I think what they should do is allow imports. Like, you should be able to take a rotation that is given to you by Wowhead and import it into this, and it's just one button and it's nerfed or whatever they want to do with that, and that's that. But yeah, outside of that, it's like, I can't understand any of the criticisms for this. Like, it's a learning thing. Like, there's one thing I'm concerned with, and that's if you run into people in Mythic Plus dungeons who are vastly underperforming, are you going to immediately criticize this? Because I run, like, regularly into people who are like half the DPS of other players overall. Like actually like plus 1 million difference between the top and the bottom. And I don't like, it's already happening. So like, does that person get better or worse if they switch to this? Do you immediately scapegoat them into assuming that this is at play? I don't know. But all I know is the game is hard. I know it's very hard for people to play for some reason at a level that would be deemed competent. But they still succeed. Maybe the biggest issue here. At the end of the day, I think if you succeed, it should be utilitarian. It should be looked at as a meritocracy. If you succeed, you succeeded and you're qualified for the next level of success. But the game doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, DPS are very easily to be carried through keys. Like those examples I give, we upgrade keys with people doing 1 million less overall than other players. You know what I mean? This is very common. So it's going to be a perennial issue, but it already is. This is not some new problem. So anybody reacting to this who's thinking like, oh, this is going to change things, it's not going to change anything. It's already happening. All it should do is help people who are just lost in this miasma of processing needed for this type of thing. They should have a better starting point. Like Ian said, it's a better starting point. You'll start at level 70 instead of 80, instead of 1 on this process tree. You know what I mean? It's helpful. And I think they're probably hesitant to make it too good, and that's why they're like nerfing it, quote unquote, by adding the GCD, like extra GCD thing or whatever. I don't know. But if it doesn't move your character, if it doesn't cause you to interrupt, if it doesn't use your cooldowns, that's like the biggest one. The fact that it doesn't use your cooldown, that may be the biggest concern, to be honest. Anybody who's actually concerned with somebody walking into their group and using this without you being aware that they're using it, you should be most concerned with that. Because it may be perfect rotationally. Somehow it would be perfect rotationally, but if it doesn't use wings as a paladin, well, obviously bad example because I don't even know how that works now, but like, if it doesn't use Dancing Rune Weapon, stay tuned for a video coming. If it doesn't use Dancing Rune Weapon as a Blood Death Knight, it's bad, right? You're not good. Like, that's a fucking core rotation. You can't not use it, you know? So how do you do a rotation when like all the synergies that feed into your cooldowns don't exist in that rotational rationale? I don't know. I don't understand the system. I don't understand why anybody thinks serious players would use the system. And I don't understand how it's going to help anybody other than people who are just totally at the learning level to the point where they can't even function without their hand being held through their class, or just like straight up just casuals. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I'm not trying to insult anybody, but like, yeah, go and do fucking delves with it. I would love to do this. I'm actually really disappointed to hear that it sounds like it's not going to work for tanking, because I'd really much like to see what they recommended for blood. I think that would be a very interesting video. So if anybody out there is a fledgling content creator and listening to this, I would really recommend you do that. Go on the PTR, rotate your spells without cooldowns, like without all the stuff it wouldn't offer you. Do your rotation as you would see as optimal. Then do it with that and see the difference. Record that and make a video on that. That video will blow up. I guarantee it, because this is that hot of a topic, and it's, I think, confusing a lot of people. I think you'd be very surprised. I might be very surprised. I would guess the results are you're going to do substantially better than this system. Like, at least 25% better. So who would fucking do it? Like, I don't understand the problems. I really don't. So lay them out. We'll be responding to comments. Stay tuned. We got a lot of weird videos coming. I still don't know what order these things are coming in, but I think very much the next video that's coming is going to be a video on this really, really crazy string of comments I got on a very popular video recently. And then there's a video coming on Mythic Plus of, ironically, something that is kind of related to this, but I didn't know it was at the time when I made the video. So stay tuned, man. The game is really very interesting nowadays.